There are plenty of snow maps scattered around the Fire Emblem series. Some of them good, and some of them not so good. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the best and worst snow maps in Fire Emblem. Oh, I should also mention that I'm only going to be taking a look at games I've played. So no fates and no echoes. Oh, and by the way, I see you're not subscribed. What are you, a loser? You have the chance to become an even bigger loser by subscribing. Please subscribe. My family is being held hostage as we speak. Now on to the video. The first snow/ice map in the series, Chapter 13 of FE3 Book 2, takes place outside the Ice Dragon Temple where Tiki and Goto reside. Marth and his army try to make their way inside, but a bunch of ice dragons intervene. This is a fairly simple chapter. Just make your way to the center, kill a few ice dragons, and seize the throne. There's even a secret shop. Now, in the remake of FE3 Book 2, New Mystery of the Emblem, this chapter is almost exactly the same. But it has Beck as a recruitable character. This New Mystery exclusive chapter has us face Clarice, an assassin that has repeatedly tried to kill Marth in his journey so far. It is the last chapter we face her on before she dies. I'm considering this chapter bad because not only is it Fog of War, but there's also hidden ballistas scattered about. The only reward you get from this is Athena and an ILIA'S shield. We both know which one is more valuable. So if you decide to train both Thea and Shanna, you go to Ilia, which is generally considered the easier route. This chapter has a pretty cool gimmick. The water becomes frozen. Other than that, it's just a fairly standard chapter that I like. I don't particularly like this chapter. Yes, we do get to play with Ike's army, and it's also on a defense chapter. But it can be frustratingly difficult to keep everyone alive with no casualties. First off, Fog of War. What's up with that? Yes, I would like to get ambushed from any direction by strong and downright terrifying enemies. You do have access to anyone you like on this map, so long as you've picked them for this specific chapter. But you do have Raphael with you, so it's going to be a pain in the end trying to keep him from dying as, you know, Dancer. This is a fairly interesting chapter. You've got both Dayan and Naysala going after you with ballistas also being thrown at you. But you can make Naysala leave if you're talking to him with either of the Hawks, then talk to him with Raisin. You want him to leave as soon as possible as he is probably the scariest enemy in this chapter. The only thing that makes it a little tricky is that the ballistas could kill Raisin, but all you really need to do is get rid of them and you're good. The major plot reveal at the end of the chapter is also really good. Map too big. Okay. Even though I love FE4, this chapter is a bit boring. It's big, has stiff enemy placements, makes you backtrack, and has a big battle that you have no control over. You just have to sit there and watch the AI fight each other for several turns over. I do like the significance of this battle and how it affects the characters and story, but you just sit there and watch. The fact that the game is slow doesn't help. But I do like that the main focus this chapter primarily is on Lewin. This is considered one of the best defense chapters in the series, and for good reason. It gives a good challenge while not being overly difficult. Even though it's for a dumb reason, I like the fact that you have to face the girl mercenaries and defend against them. Makai even gets a siege tome that she can't use. But it's fine, as you have a bunch of yellow units helping you as well, along with the legendary 313 Archer. Oh, this chapter sucks. Fog of War, ballistas, long ballistas, enemy druids that put you to sleep, and a long way to the boss? Yep, this chapter doesn't frustrate me at all. The finale to part 3 of Radiant Dawn. Chapter 314. The whole goal of the chapter is to just defeat as many enemies as possible with Ike's army. You have Skamir's army along with Tabarn's army helping out as well. Now, if you've trained the Dawn Brigade, then they can be pretty scary to face against, so it's better to avoid them. But if they're super weak, or if you haven't trained them at all, then it's not really an issue. The chapter will end once the counter in the corner reaches 80. You can do this by defeating enemies, having Lagoos helping you die, or by simply killing your own units, which is not recommended. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward chapter with a cool cutscene to end part 3. Chapter 25 of Eliwood mode and 27 of Hector mode is only bad because of Snowstorm, a feature that impedes both movement and fun. This chapter has two versions of it. There's the Kenneth version and the Germ version. Whichever one you go to depends on if either you train Dorcas, Bartray, Raven, and Guy, or Sarah, Priscillica, Urk, and Lucius. Whichever one is better depends on you, but Snowstorm sucks in both. Another Ilia route chapter. This time comes the liberation of Ilia, and this chapter is surprisingly pretty good. A little difficult, but you can say that for all of Binding Blade. The only things you have to watch out for is sleep, berserk, ballistas, enemy reinforcements. Okay, so maybe I'm a little bit of a masochist. Just a disclaimer, my opinion is purely subjective, so fair warning. I don't like this chapter. This is mainly due to the fact that I play very cautiously, so the beginning of this chapter scares me. I don't know, just something about having to get rid of two big scary dragons that won't move unless you initiate, and also having dark mages hit you through the walls like the cowards they are, just makes me uneasy. I mean, after this, the rest of the chapter is piss easy, but it's a big hurdle to overcome for a coward like me. This is a solid chapter, with a pretty straightforward goal and a decent challenge. Path of Radiance definitely has some great maps. Not much to say other than defeat Shihram, train your units, and visit the villages. Oh, and the whole plot of this chapter and the character development of Jill is pretty great. This is the first battle as the Crimea Liberation Army, and we're heading to Torgaren, the border between Dane and Begnion. This chapter is pretty tough. We have to maneuver through a cramped hallway, defeat a bunch of enemies, and if you're not careful, some of your units might die to siege tomes. Now on Maniac mode, this chapter seems like hell. And I say seems like because I haven't actually played Maniac mode. I've only seen gameplay of it and I'm not going to play it myself, because I like fun. There are 3 recruitments in this chapter: Tanith, Rayson, and Shinon. Tanith is an alright unit, but her main selling point is her ability to summon 3 yellow units, which, I mean, can be useful in some situations. Rayson is a dancer that can transform and dance for 4 units at once, and Shinon is something. The way to recruit Shinon is very cryptic. The game doesn't tell you how to do it, so logically you would look it up online. So you basically have to bring Rolf, who's not very good and dies easily at base, then talk to Shinon with Rolf. Easy enough, you just have to corner him and he won't attack since he's an archer. Then you defeat him with Ike and he will join in the next chapter. How the hell were you supposed to know that? So the start to part 4 of Radiant Dawn is quite enjoyable. Other than the generic anime storyline of everyone teaming up to kill a god, it's just an enjoyable chapter with strong units that you've trained throughout the entire game. Given, of course, that you chose to train said units and deploy them for this section of the part. Now to talk about the actual chapter. It's pretty fair. Just rout the enemy, which makes up a majority of this part's chapter objectives, but it's still fun. You get access to Skamir finally, as well as Nesala, Neolucci, Leanne, Soth, and other units of your choosing. But some of these units fall off and it can be a pain to babysit them while Skamir is out slaughtering armies. Just like Awakening, this chapter is bad. You put in a rough position, the enemies are tough, Most of your units are frail besides the haha funny quiet guy, but even then he can just die to the hammer guy if you place him in the wrong position, which unfortunately ended up happening thanks to Awakening. This is just an all around rough chapter if you don't play it right, which is what I don't like about Awakening. It's a paralog, it doesn't matter at all, you don't get anything from this and it's optional. That being said, it's a pretty decent paralog. Of course, I'm only saying this because this map is a tad bit of a reference to Chapter 4 of Genealogy, and I love Genealogy. This is the only thing good about Awakening. It's an alright chapter. Well, you do get to play with Tabarn, Alincia, and even ILIA'S joins you on the second turn, as a tier 2 unit, in part 4. You can't even give him Paragon, his hit rate sucks. Wait, this chapter is also bad? Change that now, this is the bad chapter. But, it can be trivialized with just Tabarn. Oh, well, okay, you can turn it back. ILIA'S isn't good anyways. So now that we've gone through almost every snow map in the Fire Emblem series, from the best to the worst, you now know which game to avoid. Oh, and also, this is purely subjective. You can enjoy any Fire Emblem game, chapter, character, just anything in general, as long as it's not Awakening.